Picture a single, ordinary soldier grabbing a 30-ton armored tank with his bare hands and hoisting it directly over his head. It's 1944. The Allies are pushing across Nazi-occupied Europe. The brutal math of traditional warfare is staring Allied commanders in the face. Every mile gained on the ground guarantees a massive toll in human lives. Commanders desperately needed to outmaneuver the enemy to lower those casualties. But they faced a massive logistical problem. You simply cannot hide the movement of a 30,000-man armored division. If you can't hide your true strength, you have to do the next best thing. You have to completely control where the enemy is looking. The U.S. Army's solution to this problem was the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. This was a highly classified unit made up of just 1,100 men. Unlike a traditional infantry unit, these men weren't drafted for their combat skills. The military specifically recruited civilian creatives. We're talking painters, sculptors, architects, sound engineers, and advertising professionals. Their mission was to weaponize that civilian creativity. They were tasked with generating the perfect illusion of a massive army, allowing the Allies to win major engagements without firing a single shot. Look closely at this camouflaged inflatable tank positioned behind the dirt mound. This was the first systematic layer of the deception. The visual illusion. The unit carried an entire arsenal of rubber Sherman tanks, artillery guns, and jeeps. A real tank weighs over 30 tons, but a few soldiers could pull one of these props out of a duffel bag and inflate it. A small team could set up an entire armored division before sunrise. This map shows exactly who this physical theater was meant for. German reconnaissance aircraft flying overhead. Pilots would photograph these fields and roads, looking for any sign of troop concentrations. Once an enemy analyst reviewed those photographs and saw tanks on the ground, the lie became embedded in the German intelligence network. To the high command, that fabricated army was entirely real. But a visual illusion instantly falls apart if the fake army is completely silent. An armored division makes a deafening amount of noise. To fix this, military sound engineers recorded tracks of marching boots, revving tank engines, and heavy bridge-building equipment. They played these recordings through giant, vehicle-mounted deception was electronic. Look at this soldier using the field radio. For the illusion to hold, the airwaves needed to reflect the presence of a massive force. The unit's radio operators were incredibly precise. They perfectly copied the communication styles and specific Morse code rhythms of real American units, sending out thousands of fake messages. By stacking the visual decoys with matching audio and radio traffic, the unit removed any chance for the enemy to fact-check the lie. They created a closed loop of false confirmation. The final touch was human subterfuge. These soldiers acted as physical decoys, wandering into local towns wearing fake division patches. They would sit down in cafes, like you see here, and intentionally leak carefully orchestrated rumors to anyone who might be listening. All of these layers were put to the ultimate test in March 1945 during Operation Viersen, as the Allies prepared to cross the heavily defended Rhine River. As this map shows, the Ghost Army generated the illusion of 2 full American divisions in a completely empty area. Their goal was to draw German forces away from the real crossing point. The stakes here were absolute. These 1,100 men were operating directly on the front lines with very little actual firepower. If the Germans called their bluff, the Ghost Army would be instantly annihilated. But the Germans took the bait entirely. They intercepted the radio traffic, heard the engines, and shifted their heavy armor and artillery directly toward the false target. Because of that perfectly synchronized theater of art and engineering, the true Allied forces crossed the river miles away with minimal resistance. That single lie directly saved thousands of soldiers from a bloody assault. The tactics developed by the Ghost Army were so effective that when the war ended, the U.S. government strictly classified their existence. These men returned to civilian life. Many went on to have highly successful careers as artists, yet they were legally forbidden from telling their own families how they altered the war. It took decades for their records to be declassified. Finally, in 2022, these surviving veterans received the Congressional Gold Medal, a long-delayed public recognition of their service. Their story challenges traditional definitions of military power, proving that brute force and steel are not the only paths to victory. In the darkest days of the 20th century, a small group of artists proved that imagination, intelligence, and teamwork can manipulate reality itself to